study guide. All right, you guys. I know that it's going to be probably kind of hard to see my problems up here, but it's the same thing that you see on yours. So the first one is just graphing. If you see equal signs, that means there's no shading. So you don't have to shade anything in on number 1. You just have to graph them. So I'm going to do that really quick. Make a point at 2. Really small. Then from there, I'm going to go up to right 1. Up to right 1. You don't need a bunch of points. You really only have to have 2 points. And then you can make a line through it like that. So that's your first line. And then your second line, you're going to make a point at positive 1, which is right here. And then you'd go up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. And I can tell where that point is crossing. I'm going to make my line really quick. The whole purpose of doing this is you can see where the 2 lines cross each other, and that's your answer. So the 2 lines end up crossing. You have to go negative 1, and you don't have to go up or down any. So your answer would be negative 1, 0 for number 1. Like I said, you don't have to shade anything in because of the fact that there's equal signs, not an inequality. So that's how you would know whether you do that or not. I'm almost positive we did number 2 together, but I'm going to show you again really quick. It says, does the system of equations have no solution or infinitely many solutions? So I'm going to take the part that is equal to y, which is right here, and I'm going to plug that into the y on the top equation. So negative 2x plus 3, and then it asks for a y, but instead of writing y, I'm replacing it now. I'm substituting it with 2/3 x plus 2. That's why this is called substitution. I no longer have to write y. I can rewrite it with the part that has the x in it, and it equals 6. So I'm going to rewrite the negative 2x, but I need to distribute this 3 to everything in parentheses. So 3 times 2/3 x is positive 2x. And then 3 times 2 is positive 6. And it still equals 6. So on the left side, I can cancel out negative 2x and positive 2x. Those go away. So I'm left with 6 equals 6, which is a true statement. So that means that it's infinite solutions. If you end up with something true, it's infinite. If you end up with something false, it is no solution. So on 3, it's the exact same question. I'm plugging in this part right here into where y is on the second equation. So I start with 2x plus 5, and then they ask for a y. I'm going to replace that with a negative 2/5 x minus 1, and then it's supposed to equal 20. So all I've done now is replace the y in the second equation with negative 2/5 x minus 1. So the 2x, I just keep that there. 5 times negative 2/5 is what? Yeah, negative 2x. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5, and it equals 20. So once again, my x's cancel out, but this time I'm left with negative 5 equals 20, and that is not true, which makes this no solution. From what I've been told, on your map test at the end of the year, you're allowed to use a calculator on the whole thing. So knowing how to type in fractions on a calculator is going to help you a lot. It's going to help how fast you can do problems. Like, instead of sitting there figuring out what 5 times negative 2/5 is, you can type that right in so that you can finish your problem quicker. So if you don't know how to do that, get with me and we'll figure out how to do that. Luke sells toy cars for $12 each. So my first equation is all about the revenue. So he's making money on these cars. He's making $12 per car. So that's my first equation. But he also has expenses because to make these cars, it costs money. You don't just like show up with a car and you didn't have to pay for anything. So y equals $350 X, and then apparently he had to buy a one-time thing, like to actually make the stuff. He had to get certain tools to do that. So those are my two equations. The top equation talks about how much money he's making. The bottom equation talks about how much money he's having to spend for each car. We're going to set the end of each equation equal to each other. So 12x equal to 350x plus 34. So when you're solving this equation, you have to get your x's on the same side first. I had some people trying to move the 34 first, which is a normal thing to do, but you need to make sure you're moving the x's first to get them all together. So the opposite of positive 350x is negative 350x. I'm going to move that to the other side. So these go away, and I'm left with, what is it, 850x. That's a bad 5, but that's okay. Equals 34. I divide both sides by 850, and I end up with 4. Well, x equals 4. So this one was multiple choice. You just had to circle C. That just means he has to sell 4 cars for him to break even. Number 5, what's the solution to the system of equations? I've told you before, I'll tell you again, if you don't do this the exact same way as me, because nowhere does it say you have to use elimination, you have to use substitution. If it doesn't say that, use whatever way you like the best. If you didn't do it the same way as me, that's fine, as long as you get the same answer as I do at the end. So I am going to use elimination because they're both in standard form. The easiest thing for me to do would be to cancel out my x's. So I'm going to keep the top equation exactly how it was, 2x plus 5y equals 14. And then the bottom equation, I'm taking everything times negative 2. So that would be negative 2x minus 6y equals negative 32. So my x's cancel. You're left with negative 1y equals, what is it, negative 18? Divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1. You know that y equals 18. At this point, you just need to go plug that back into one of your equations. It really doesn't matter which one you choose. The bottom one actually looks easier to me, so maybe that's the one I'll use. X plus 3 times 18 equals 16. So I've got to figure out what 3 times 18 is, which is what? Anyone? 54. I'm going to subtract 54 from both sides. And I'm going to get that x is a negative number. Negative 38. Forgot my negative. Negative 38. That just looks like I have 3 lines in my equal sign, but it's a negative 38. So y equals 18 and x equals negative 38. If you wanted to, you could write that in an ordered pair. If it asks you to write it in an ordered pair, you have to. If it doesn't, I'll take it either way. Same thing on number 6. What is the solution of the system? There's a lot of ways you could have done this. I'm actually going to multiply both equations. I'm going to try to eliminate my x's because one's positive and one's negative already. So I know that I'm going to try to get the top one to 6. So I need to take this one times 3. And I want the bottom x to become negative 6, so I'll take this one times 2. So I'm taking my top equation times 3, which would give me 15x plus 6y equals 27. My bottom equation would give me 8x minus 6y equals 88. So I'm trying to get rid of my y's. So when I add everything together, the y's cancel out, and you're left with 23x equals what is it? 115. Last step, divide by 23. So x equals 5. That's your first part. Then pick one of your equations. Both of these are, about the same. So I'm going to choose the top one. Everywhere I have an x, I'm replacing it with a 5. 5 times 5 plus 2y equals 9. So I know 5 times 5 is 25 plus 2y equals 9. So I'm going to subtract 25 from both sides. 9 minus 25, right? Is that right? Okay. Divide by 2. What does y equal? Yeah. So if you want to write them as an ordered pair, that's fine. This is what it would look like. All right, so that was, I don't even know what number that was, but we're moving on to 7. The price of 6 slices of pizza and 4 drinks, so 6x plus 4y equals 37. Then it says the price of 4 slices of pizza and 6 drinks is 33. And then it wants to know how much a drink costs. So are we looking for x or for y? We want y. So I'm going to try to get my x's canceled out. I'm going to take the top equation times 4 and the bottom equation times -6. If you did this differently than me, that doesn't mean you got it wrong. So keep your answer until we see. So 4 times, I'm going to take the top one times 4, which would give me 24x plus 16y. And I don't know that. 37 times 4. Yeah. I hope you can still see this on the video. This one will be -24x minus 36y equals, thank you. I'm running out of room. So anyway, 16 minus 36 is going to give you -20y. Then you're going to take -198 plus 148, or you could do it the opposite way. You get -50. So when I take -50 divided by -20, I end up with 2.5 for y, and that's all they wanted. You don't even have to solve for the other one. So B on number 7 is your answer. So when you divide by -20 on both sides, you get y equals 2.5. And since we know we want drinks, then we're done. At a theater, the price of 4 adult tickets and 3 child tickets is $156. So 4x plus 3y equals 156. 3 adult tickets and 4 child tickets is $145. I wonder what kind of theater we're talking about here. Seems expensive. Okay, I don't care which one you eliminated. If you did it differently than me, that's fine. We just need to know what a child ticket and an adult ticket costs. So I'm going to try to eliminate my x's, I guess. So I'm going to take the top one times 3 and the bottom one times -4. Which would leave me 12x plus 9y equals 468. 156 times 3. Then you're going to take -12x minus 16y, and then 145 times -4, -580. Add everything together. Your x's have canceled out. You're left with -7y, and then -580 plus 468 is -112. Like I said, if you chose to do a different way, that's totally fine. You just need to make sure our answers are the same at the end. So I'm dividing by -7. I get 16 for y. I'm going to go back to my equation and look. Y stood for kid tickets or child tickets, so that's how much this one would be. If I go back and plug it into my equation, I'm going to actually kind of like go down on number 9 and write this in so you can see. Take one of your equations, plug in a 16 everywhere you have a y, and solve the equation. So 3 times 16, 48, and then you subtract that from 156. So this is just a two-step equation. I know I'm kind of speeding through that, but 156 minus 48 is 108. Divide by 4, and you end up with $27 for an adult ticket. So a child ticket is $16, an adult ticket is $27. However you chose to do that, it's fine as long as you got that answer. I'm going to leave that work up there for a second because I need to erase it to do number 9. So actually, no, I don't, because I have that on the next page. Okay. The word problems, I'll have to look. After this, I'll look at your test and see. I don't know on your test if there's like the A, B, C, D part of the word problems or if they just ask you to solve the word problems. I'll look and see. But what are the unknowns? Well, we're planning a trip, a 7-day trip to California. He estimates that the cost is $300 in San Diego, $400 per day in Los Angeles, and then they tell you the total budget. How many days should he spend in each city? So the only thing we don't know is how many days in each city. It tells us the price for each day. So we just have to know how many days we're spending in each city. Then it says write 2 equations based on the information given. So the first equation is all about just how many days you're going. We're going to 2 different cities. So that would be x plus y, and we're going for 7 days total. That's our first equation. Our second equation is all about the cost of that. So 300x, and then it says it costs $400 a day in Los Angeles, and that would equal $2,400 total. So those are the 2 equations. When you solve the equations, what I would do is take the top equation and cancel out. So I would take it times negative 300. If you didn't do it that way, that's fine. Just make sure you have the same answer as me at the end. So that would be negative 300x minus 300y equals negative 2,100. So my x is canceled. That would leave me with 100y equals 300. When I divide by 100, I get that y equals 3. Y equals 3. I take it back to my top equation, which was super easy. X plus y equals 7. So x, oops, that was bad. X plus 3 equals 7. That's mental math. What plus 3 gives me 7? So x is 4. It wants to know what that means. So in my equation, $300 stood for San Diego. So X stands for San Diego, 4 days in San Diego, and 3 days in LA. That's what it means. 10 is very similar to this, except for that it's talking about animals in the barn, and then you have to use some common sense here because you have to know how many legs certain animals have. And for some of us, we might have to think harder for that than others, but what are the unknowns? So Keith has 15 animals. Some are chickens, some are pigs. There are 40 legs in all. How many chickens does Keith have in the barn? How many pigs? So we don't know the number of chickens or pigs. I'll be honest, I had to think for a minute about how many legs chickens had. I don't look at those things very often. And I'm actually very terrified of like birds. If you want to know a fun fact about me, I think all birds are terrifying. Two equations. The first equation will be x plus y equals 15. We know we have chickens. We know we have pigs. We have no idea how many, so we just represent each of them with a different letter. The second equation, we're talking about legs. I know a chicken has 2 legs after doing some research. I know that pigs have 4 legs, and there are 40 legs total. So that was for B. You just had to write 2 equations, and then how will you solve this? I'm going to do elimination. That's going to be easier. So I'm going to take my whole top equation times -2. So that would be -2x minus 2y equals -30. Going to combine everything, which leaves me 2y equals 10. So I know that y equals 5. I plug that back into my top equation. Something plus 5 gives me 15, so x equals 10. Now I have to figure out what that means. Did x stand for chickens or did y stand for chickens? Well, x stood for chickens, so we have 10 chickens, which that would be a total of 20 legs. And 5 pigs, which would be another 20 legs, which we had a total of 40 legs. So that's just me checking my work in my head, making sure everything was okay. And that's my answer. All right. Last 2 questions. These are the graphing inequality questions. And I think it's very similar on your test. I'll look. I think there's only a couple of these. So you treat this like the first question that we did on this, except for now you notice, like in this one, there's a greater than sign. So that means there will be shading on this question. You're going to graph the point at -4, and this is so tiny for me that I can barely see it. So I think that's right. Then I'm already have a fraction. My fraction's already 2/3. That means I'm going up 2 and right 3. So from this point up 2, right 1, 2, 3. Up 2, right 1, 2, 3. You only have to put 2 points. I just put 3 just because. Then you look at your sign and decide, do I need to have a dotted line or a solid line? If it's greater than like that, it would be a dotted line or a dashed line, whichever way. I don't know why it's red, but there we go. So then you have to pick a test point. 0, 0 is on the top of this line. I'm going to try it out. 0 is greater than, I know that 2/3 times 0 is just 0, so it would be -4. Is 0 greater than -4? So you'll shade the top of your graph in. The last one is a system, which means we have more than one inequality we're looking at. So I'm going to try to make this bigger so I can graph it easier. I don't think that's going to work, but. All right, so you're going to graph both lines separately. The first one is down here. You'll have a point down here at -3. From there, your slope is 2, which would be 2/1. So I'm going to go up 2, right 1. Up 2, right 1. The sign is greater than or equal to, which means this would be a solid line through those points. Ooh, not the best. And you're going to pick a test point to make sure that that works. So I'm going to choose 0, 0. I'm looking at my top equation. 0 is greater than 2 times 0 is 0. -3 would be -3. That is true. 0, 0 is greater than -3. I'm going to shade the top of the graph in. From there, now I have to graph my second equation or inequality. I'm going to make a point at +2, which is right here. My slope is 1/2. That means I go up 1, right 2. Up 1, right 2. It is a less than sign, so that means my line would be dotted. going through the blue points. I'm going to try the point 0, 0. So 0 is less than, I know 1/2 times 0 is still 0, and then it would be less than 2. So that is also true. So from the dotted line, everything below would be shaded in. There's only one little portion that they're overlapping, and that's what we care about. I'm coloring it in green right now. Those are the solutions to both. And that's what you want to know when you're doing a system. You don't care about solutions to just one. You want to know the solutions to both. All right, so that was our study guide. Like I said, this video will be posted if you get